Maneva na say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
Easily find $109 million. But the good news is that we've rejected it at the back of the concerns raised that it's got to do with sharing sensitive citizens' data. You know, Ghana saw it and says, no, we will not follow that suit.
Well, I think there's no conversation here. Because the conversation that would have been had would have focused more on if Ghana had accepted.
Accepted, yes.
Now, because Ghana has rejected, there's no conversation to be had. Data protection is key. Keeping people's private information is very important. And even if you went to the United States of America, the practice is the same. You cannot divulge people's personal private information. So it beggars belief why they would even make it a precondition to advance monies to us. So I'm happy that at least we have a president who understands the importance of privacy and the importance of self-dignity as Ghanaians. It is not so much about, it shouldn't be so much about all the time, so much about money. It should be about maintaining dignity. And a demonstration of that has given me the confidence that indeed Ghanaians did not make a mistake when they went to the polls and voted for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Ultimately, all of us must rally behind the president and his decisions, because all of these decisions that are taken in the interest of the people. I think we must move the conversation now beyond the healthcare support to the military installations that are in Ghana. You know that they have these American military installations even at the airports. These are very serious matters that we must concern ourselves with. To that end, I want to commend the president highly. I want to thank the good people of this country for consistently supporting the president to do things for our benefit and in our interest. So that should be it. Yeah.
But let's play the devil's advocate a little bit. What would have happened if Ghana had accepted to sign on to the agreement? What would be the serious repercussions? I know the protection of data.
David, there's no devil here. So I cannot be an advocate for the devil. The point is what I have indicated, that the president did not accept that appearance of a sumptuous offer. So once the president did not accept it, there's no conversation here. I mean, we cannot engineer a conversation when there's no need for it. So the crux of it is that the president refused to accept it. I think that we should leave the conversation there. You understand what I'm saying? And that is why I started the conversation by explaining to you the importance of data protection and what it means for the dignity of the good people of this country. To that end, again, I reiterate that I commend the president highly for disagreeing and refusing to accept an aid that could have become a very heavy burden on the shoulders of the good people of this country.
Yes, come in. What are your candid views on this?
Let me also begin by commending the president for rejecting this particular deal. Sovereignty is very important, and as Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of Amilcar Cabral, the likes of Sekou, and the founding fathers of Africa, and our leaders, the actual leaders of Africa, believed that we cannot be truly independent if we are not economic independent. And then why do I bring in the economic question here? Data is a very important factor of production, because it is data that you use to determine what the market needs. It is data that you use to determine the market demands, and it's data that you use to determine which sectors are profitable. And so data is a very important question here. Now, we will make we will reduce the conversation if we say, oh, this is just about health and it's just about the US, it's not about business. But then every single decision that the US take is tied to an economic interest. And it is based on the data they get. That's how come they are able to formulate this IMF. How come they are able to, advance their economic interests. This is how come they are able to, proper policies that serve their economic interests. And I'll give you an example. During the Champon regime, when we had subsidies on fertilizers, when we were trying to produce our own food and what have you, after the Champon regime collapsed and then we went in for the IMF program, what did they tell us? They told us to remove subsidies on fertilizers and rather, remove taxes on importation of food. So now, instead of producing your own food, it's more expensive to produce your own food and more cheaper to import food. What does this tell you? It gives the economic advantage to capital. And so for me, that is how I look at it. It's not just about agreement and diplomacy and what have you. It is also tied to economic interest, and it's about how we are able to get our economic sovereignty. Beyond that, this aids and grant and what have you always come with conditionalities. An example is the IMF program, and I keep referring to it. What do they tell us? And it's very clear that anytime we are in an IMF period, our economy, performs well. But what are the conditions? What are the opportunity costs? One is that labor are laid off. Two is that salaries are reduced. And a lot of draconian policies are being, added to this IMF program. And so, for me, I believe that it's a step in the right direction that the president had rejected this particular offer. Beyond it, as my brother said, we need to move beyond this health conversation. Let's look at the 2018, US-Ghana military cooperation agreement that was signed. This agreement gives the US unrestricted access to our various spaces. A US military can just walk into this country without a passport. This is privilege beyond diplomacy. Even diplomats do not have that privilege of entering the country without a passport. As a diplomat, you need to come with your passport. But US military can just come in with their ID card. And if they come and they commit crimes in Ghana, we cannot take them to any court in Ghana. So these are some of the obnoxious, arrangement that we have with the US. They have access to our frequency. They have access to our airspace, unlimited access to our airspace. And we need to move beyond these health issues. Now we need to tackle this particular agreement. And I'm very happy that my movement is leading a coalition of other progressive forces to demand the repeal of that particular agreement. And then the petition is online. You can search the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Hard copy of the petition is also available at the Freedom Center. You can sign from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, Monday to Friday. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. We need to move beyond just our independence to asserting our sovereignty. Sovereignty means political sovereignty, economic sovereignty. And this is where we need to look at it. And so I commend the president highly, and I expect that future decisions, in fact, the president, assuming office, has taken a lot of bold steps that seek to assert our sovereignty, tabling a resolution for reparations and declaring the transatlantic slave trade as the greatest crime against humanity, rejection of this health deal, his speech at the UN, calling on the United Nations to lift the embargo on Cuba and Venezuela. These are all stellar, achievements, and I think that we need to commend the president, and I hope that he will maintain this path, and that will actually lead us to our sovereignty as a nation.
Thank you so much. Alhaji Inusaf Hussein is the former Lands and Natural Resources. Honorable, good morning. Thanks for your time this morning.
How are you?
We are managing.
Good.
I believe the way you are, your shirt is strictly iron. You had light today.
Yes.
Oh, thankfully.
Yes.
Right.
And government is trying to fix the obsolete equipment that has been largely responsible for the interference and regular supply of power to the people.
Right.
And let me take opportunity to commend my brother John Jinapo highly for his singleness of purpose and commitment to dealing with the problems that are facing the country presently.
Right. I don't know how you took in, this news of Ghana rejecting that health, assistance to Ghana. And I was making the statement or the argument that we could generate over $97 million to dig a hole, and yet we are going in for $109 million. So obviously it doesn't make sense. And thankfully the president has rejected, that move. I don't know what you make or your indications are on this.
Well, this president is spot on. I mean, and it also ties in with what we are seeing across Africa. I mean, it's not only Ghana that has rejected it. Some other African countries too have rejected the conditionalities attached to the aid, the health aid from the United States of America. And rightly so. I mean, it's an exercise in sovereignty that you have laws regulating us in this country. We have our constitution, Article 18, particularly Article 18.2 of the Constitution, that guarantees privacy of a life. I mean, of persons, and then or the right to privacy. And then you have the Data Protection Act, which says that individual data collected by state institutions or private entities are protected by law. You can't just give it out. And it's important to put it in perspective. Data is you. I mean, in this age of AI, if your data is sent to somebody, it's very easy to track you. It's very easy to program an AI intelligent device to follow you. You will have no privacy again. Your whole being alive will be compromised. You can be targeted. I mean, smart bombs are being developed. Your data could be the tracking device, because everybody is uniquely programmed by God, and the Americans know that. The Israelis know that. Many countries know that. And then when they have access to your data, they have access to you. I mean, you have PIN, personal identification number. Have you ever asked yourself, how come that all over the world, somebody dials your particular number given to you, your personal identification number, that's your phone number, and it comes straight to you? Have you ever asked yourself what that technology means? Just by signs, people are able to allocate to you a number that identifies you. That identifies you. I mean, just imagine what will happen if your data is made available to others. I mean, this is why it is protected. I mean, and no one should joke with it. If you're joking with data, you're joking with your life. Now, and I like the way the debate has been framed by my colleague here. That look, again, with data, people are able to mine it for economic purposes. So they know what kind of DNA, what kind of illnesses we are prone to, and then they manufacture drugs targeting us. Okay? And they exploit the data for their own commercial purposes. They can do that. I mean, so America might be giving you $100 million, but what they will get in return will blow your mind. So that's not aid. That's exploitation. And many Africans are seeing through the exploitative conduct of the United States of America in terms of this aid. And that is what our president, ably assisted by technocrats who advised him that this aid will be dangerous for Ghana if we accept them with the conditionalities attached. We're giving ourselves away. Our dignity as people. Human dignity is inviolable. The Constitution says that. Can you imagine that you go to hospital, they collect your data, and your data is sitting in the repository somewhere else, in Washington or New York or somewhere else. that can be manipulated against you. I mean, we can do that. And I thank His Excellency the President for the boldness he's exhibited. And like has been said on this platform, he's exhibited that consistently since taking over the reins of this country on the 7th day of January 2025. He says it where it must be said. He acts when he must act and confronts challenges the way leaders ought to confront challenges, and that is very commendable. That we can no longer be tied to the apron strings of people who don't have our interests but only pretend to be helping us. We can no longer, and that is what we are seeing today.
Right, okay, so I think that will solve that debate on that subject matter. Let's turn our attention to the mining industry. Earlier, I think early part of this year, the president issued some statement indicating that we're going to turn over major part of the mining industry to local firms. In fact, Reuters has given that indication that certain firms have been instructed by government to hand over their operations by the close of this year to local industries. At the back of that, there's been accusations. People see this move by government as a means of state capture. Government trying to also think that government is trying to nationalize some of the, that sector, especially the mining sector. Government is intending to nationalize and also being fingered in an act of state capture. And that's the question we're asking. There are means, to turn over the mining industry to local firms. Is it a means of state capture? At the back of that, we've had recent reports where some firms have taken over some of the mining industries, right? And if you look at the Inside newspaper this morning, it talks about Adamos Mining lease revocation. Lands and Mines Watch demands criminal prosecution over infractions. The attempt to, in fact, the lease to Adamos have been revoked, and this has sparked a lot of controversy. And the man in question, or the association in that made this particular call, is here with us here in the studio. Kwame also Danso. I think it's I don't know if you heard the agency, the Lands and Mines Watch. You are demanding criminal prosecution over the infraction. But first of all, I want us to start off on this note. The attempt by government, to hand over the mining sector to local firms. People are fingering government that we are involved in a form of state capture. Do you see that happening?
Well, this kind of moribund analysis must not be allowed in our progressive discourse. That all the time, whenever we want to malign or paint the government black, then we exhume narratives that does not exist in support of wanting to paint the government black. It is clear that the natural resources that we have in this country, and I'm happy that my godfather is here, he can explain to you better the importance of it. But it's supposed to benefit the generality of the Ghanaian people. That we have to exploit our own resources for the benefit of our people. Failure of which would mean that we should leave the resources where it belongs. We should leave it underneath the soil. We have gone into agreements where the country only gets about 5% of mineral royalties. So if you look at the trajectory of our extractive sector after the 1960s and the kind of partnerships we've had, even Sanjifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah himself had some partnerships with the World Bank at the time to help, build the extractive sector, etc. From that time till now, we've not really benefited as a people from what we are supposed to get, by extracting our mineral resources. And we've had consistent conversations about how we can turn around that conversation and ensure that Ghanaians do benefit from our resources. That conversation has been ongoing for a while. What do we want as a people? Do we still want to be subjugated by our pandering to the whims and caprices of the West, or we want to own our resources, control it, and use it for our own benefit? Of course, we want to control our resources and use it for our own benefit. So once we're having those conversations, we must be very patriotic and not discuss the matters from the lenses of extreme partisanship. Otherwise, we'll be missing the point. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point is that, look, the issue of local content, the conversation around local content has been a perennial one. It didn't suddenly gain voice in this administration. It's something that is a conversation that precedes this current NDC administration. And in fact, the law governing local content, I think, was promulgated under the previous administration, I believe.
Yeah, local content.
Yes.
2008.
2008. But we, throughout that period, did not really get a government that decided to give flesh to the law. And now, this administration has been very intentional. President Mahama is saying that, look, let's empower local businesses. Let's ensure that we find a way of involving our local companies so that they can go in there, work, take advantage of the resources, and then by extension create jobs for the people of this country. That is what it is. Why would anybody say that pushing this narrative is rather injurious to the sector? Or why would anybody make such erroneous assumptions or the misapplication of logical facts? Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody decide that for political expediency, let's throw our conscience to the dogs? Are you following? So, for me, it is important. Now, the decision by government to say that for a number of the foreign mining firms in Ghana, they must cede some aspects of their operations to local firms is a step in the right direction. Because you see, if you talk about the operations, if you talk about operations, for instance, you are just looking at, for instance, the haulage, blasting, if you like, transportation, all those small aspects of the mining, that is what government is saying, that
entire operation.
Oh no, that's what government is saying, that see those ones, the aspect of it, those ones to mining firms. What is wrong with that? We live in this country where all these South African mining firms, Newmont and Goldfields and the rest, whatever revenue they generate, there's always a plane waiting at the tarmac to take those monies out. It does a number of things. Look, for instance, if a local company is allowed to operate within the space, what it means is that it would rather allow the companies to work and to generate a lot of jobs for the people within those communities. That's my honest opinion. Of course, the Ghana Mines Workers Union has issued a statement, and the person who appended a signature to it is a very good friend of mine, Mumin Bana. Very, very good friend. So ordinarily, my analysis should gravitate towards his position, but I depart completely from it, because you see, they cite reasons such as, it is going to affect, for instance, the payment structure, and that foreign companies pay better than local firms. That's the first point they make. And that the second point is that it's also going to affect employment. So, to this end, their view is that government should not encourage, or government should not force, the foreign companies to cede some aspect of their operations to the local company. That's their position. Then I asked, so then I was debating with my mind, and I was asking a lot of questions. But how did they come to this conclusion? Because you see, they cited EMP, and then they cited, I think, Rockshore, and they cited BCM. BCM quite lately has not been getting jobs. I think their contract with Goldfields was terminated. So EMP really and truly is the local company that's actively involved in the operations of some of the mines. And now, by reason of the if you like, the uprightness of the business owner and the business itself, now they have like a proper concession to its name. But the point I'm making is that you cannot use maybe EMP or BCM, as an example to buttress the argument that you're making that local firms will not be able to take care of the workers. It doesn't work that way. You don't have the data to support that. At the very least, it will just be mere conjecture. And conjectures really do not find expression, in my view, in establishing truth. Because you can only conjecture. If you don't have evidence to support your conjecturing, then you are only, spewing garbage. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that let's support government. Expand the mining industry. Expand the sector, so that a lot of jobs will be created. We are talking about our fight against galamsey, but it is very important to do a proper juxtaposition with the lack of jobs. People don't have jobs to do. I'm not justifying it. I'm not justifying galamsey, but the reality is that in dealing with one issue, you'll be creating another. So if we resource some of these local firms, they will create more jobs. A lot of the young people who live in those communities will get jobs to do. So rather, we should be forward thinking and support this particular position of government in expanding the sector and by creating more opportunities for local business. Tomorrow, Kwame Osudansu may have I actually have a mining company, but I'm not doing it. Geo-Axis Minerals may get the opportunity to undertake some of these operations. And by so doing, I'll create opportunities for other people to get jobs to do, etc., and to earn an income for themselves. So that's on the local content bit. Now, if you come to the Adamus mining saga, if you like, before a mining company would be given the opportunity to exploit our resources, they must go through certain processes, and those processes are superintended over by the Minerals Commission. So the Minerals Commission will take receipt of your company details, etc., look at your financial capacity, look at your technical ability, look at your ability to deal with risk, etc., and they look at your concession area, and they will give you prospecting license, etc., and then eventually give you a lease, and so you go and operate. But also, in doing so, as an operating mining firm, you must operate within the confines of the law, and which law is the Minerals and Mining Act, right? So specifically, you have to comply with Section 14 of the Minerals and Mining Act. That if you've been given a concession, you don't have to sublet. If you want to subcontract or sublet, you need the prior approval of the institution that gave you the concession. You are also not supposed to do a number of things. For instance, you don't have to encourage illegal mining. You make sure that you comply with all the mining safety protocols. Essentially, deal with the issues of compliance, etc. So once you fail to do that, then it's enough grounds for the revocation of your license. Now, the chief mining inspector usually will go to the mines and do the inspection and look at all the things, your tailings, your whatever, and then they will write a report to the minister. And if their report suggests that you are misusing or abusing the license or the lease that has been granted you, then the recommendation will be given or written to the minister, and the minister would have to action on it, right? So that is essentially what happened with the Adamus resources, because they found out that they had breached Section 14 of the Minerals and Mining Act. And the decision to revoke the license is also found in law. I mean, say, I think Section 68 or so of the Minerals and Mining Act also allows the Minerals Commission to to recommend to the minister that this person's
in the midst of all their beef is that they were not heard.
No, relax. It is not about, the law does not say you should give anybody the opportunity to be heard. You see, sometimes we have to face it. The law is there. If you read Section 68, it's there. When we go, so if you have it here, you can Google it. And then no. But you see, if you know that the law was made for man, then you must comply with the law. That is what it is. Look,
obviously you want to hear the person's side
hold on. The authorizing body has its own rules and regulations. But there are airlines, there are LI 217, for instance, which governs the awarding, giving concessions and things like that, the tendering processes and all of that. There are laws. Are you following me? So, for instance, in the Daman case, you say that the minimum capital requirement is about $500 million. You see, it's one of the bases for which the commission will recommend to the minister that maybe you qualify. So, in all of the tendering process, you have met all the requirements, because there are 3 stages. There's a phase 1, phase 2, and a phase 3. The phase 1 is a statutory requirement, which is the having your tax clearance, all those ones. The phase 2 is the technical requirement. So you must meet the threshold. And the technical requirements, your equipment or machinery carries about 40% of the marks. Then, once you're able to cross that, then you come to the financial requirement. You have to demonstrate that you have the money to be able to run. So if you have presented your documents which suggest that, for instance, you have all the equipment, and then later it turns out that you deceived the commission, why would the commission say that you need to be heard? Because they do their own internal investigations. They do their own. That's why we have the chief inspector of mines. So they do all of that. And then they will come to a conclusion that, look, you have not complied with the requirements. And usually, some of the decisions are not just taken abruptly. They do a number of checks and eventually come to the conclusion that you have not complied with XYZ. On the basis of that, we are revoking your license. Let me tell you something for free. As Lands and Mines Watch Ghana, our core duty is advocacy, but also to ensure compliance. And compliance from both the mining firms and also the authorizing body. Because we have noticed that more often than not, and in the past really, Minerals Commission had reneged on its responsibility of ensuring proper compliance. That is why most of the mining companies are suffering today, because now that they are working, they've noticed that a lot of the mining companies are not even complying with some of the requirements. Are you following? So that's what it is. Yesterday we had the opportunity of going to the Minerals Commission. We engaged with because we had, through our own investigations, identified that even some of the prospecting licenses which were issued to some of the firms were not in use. And there are people who have the money and they are ready to invest. They are not getting the licenses because somebody has applied and has been given the prospecting license and is not using it. And you have people in the commission who are shielding those companies because they pay them. Are you following? So it is not just a matter of, let me just take a knee-jerk decision. No. It's a decision that was taken by reason of the investigations which were conducted by the Chief Inspector of Mines, which investigations did not just happen overnight. Are you following? And the minister will not just get up and revoke a license. No. So I'm simply saying that is what it is. Now, in ending my submission, so my big brother can come in, right? Is to say that we are all for prosecution. You see, oftentimes we revoke licenses. It's like the Public Accounts Committee. People come and sit there and talk plenty and just give us BP that we are hearing the figures being bandied about. But in the final analysis, nothing happens to the culprits or the perpetrators. This one, we are encouraging the Minerals Commission to take the matter up. In fact, they have indicated that they are going to take the matter up. They forwarded the docket to the Attorney General for onward prosecution. If it is clear, it comes out demonstrably so, that the managers of the mines were involved in illegal mining, I think by all means we must prosecute them. to serve as a deterrent to others who are issuing licenses to people to mine. Because the law is clear that you must not subcontract, you must not sublet, you must not do anything with it, or even mortgage. Are you following me? If you did that, it means that you have deliberately, intentionally violated the laws that the law that has given you the privilege and opportunity to mine. So we are calling for prosecution. Yes.
See, starting from where my colleague ended, see, our country is governed by laws, and all of us are required to abide by those laws. And so, if there are specific laws that a company must follow, that company is obliged to follow that particular law, and it's clear. But then, we must also find out, or we must also ask, are the laws applied equitably? Are the same punishment applied to all? Is everybody treated equally? These are some of the questions that we need to ask. If you come to the mining sector, it's very important to put out that mining has environmental consequences, regardless of how it is done, regardless of whether the mining company complies with the relevant laws or not. It has environmental consequences, and that is usually what we normally look out for. Whether legal mining or illegal mining, they have environmental consequences. And so it's very important that the laws actually look specifically at the environmental consequences and how to minimize the consequences on the people living within the area the mine is situated. Adamus Mining have been, engaged in these mining operations for some time. Okay, and they have breached certain parts of the laws. It is just fair, okay? It's just fair, as we said, that they need to be heard, or they need to be, given the opportunity to answer and what have you. But then if the laws are clear, if it is clear that they've breached the law, why not? We need to crack the whips, because we are actually losing a lot in terms of our environment to mining. And so if a mining company is given the opportunity to mine and they now begin to also breach the various laws, and all they care about is the surplus value they will be able to extract, then I think that we need to support the ministry, we need to support the Minerals Commission, we need to support whatever agency is responsible to crack the whips. And I'm in full support of taking various actions that ensures that our mining sector is actually streamlined. And I think that that is what we should advocate for. Beyond that, it's also very important to state the fact that my position, as well as my organization's position on mining, is that the resources of the African people must be exploited or extracted to benefit the African people. For centuries, our people were captured as beasts of burden and sent to work for free. For centuries and decades, our resources were extracted free of charge. They took our gold, they took all the resources free of charge to build their country. The least we could do in this modern era is to ensure that those resources at least benefit our people. And so, in line with our 2024 alternative policy document, we made it clear that we need to assert state ownership of all mines, such that the surplus value extracted from these mines are used to benefit the people of Ghana. These private firms, mainly foreign firms, extract this profit and then send it abroad to go and better their own countries, to go and better their own lives, the lives of individuals. But then when you go into the mining communities, they are in a very deplorable state. Their roads are bad. If you go to places like Obuasi, Takwa, where mining companies operate, their roads are terrible. And so for us, we believe that the resources must be extracted to benefit the people. Oftentimes, laws are created mainly to protect foreign capital, or to protect capital in general. For instance, mining companies have a lot of tax waivers and incentives to operate, even though they are making lots of money. They don't pay VAT if they make purchases, and at the end of the year they file their returns. Those purchases or those VAT purchases are given to them back as tax credits. All these are advantages enjoyed by mining corporations. And they do this at the back of still, extracting the resources for their own benefit. So for me, my position is that, look, we need to move beyond just handing the mines over to individuals, whether regardless of their nationalities. We need to move towards state ownership. But then, not to say I disagree with the fact that we need to now promote local content and what have you. I think that we must encourage that, but then we must also, have some guidelines, some framework such that the surplus value they make are used to benefit the people. What if a private person or a Ghanaian also extracts the surplus value and also send it to make investment outside? And we know a lot of Ghanaian businesses prefer to make investment outside. Does it benefit the Ghanaian people? The question is no. So it's not just about the nationality. It's about whether the resources will benefit the people. And so for us, we believe in state mining, state ownership of the mines. However, if we are handing it over to private individuals, just because they are Ghanaians, there must be accompanying legislation or regulations that will ensure that their surplus value is used to benefit the people. There should be some kind of clear framework as to how their profits are being, used in terms of whether it will be sent outside or whether it will be used to develop our country. That is the fundamental question that we need to, the fundamental issue that I think we need to address.
Right.
Beyond that, I also think that we must look at this mining thing holistically. For me, I think that, and I made the point earlier, that the difference between legal mining and the illegal mining issue has to do with capital. It's the fact that one part has the money, through whatever means, to build structures, and the other do not have. And at the end of the day, we chase out those who do not have the capital, those who do not have the means. We chase them out, leaving those who have the means. At the end of the day, they all, extract these monies or these surplus values to their own personal benefit. So I think that, for me, that is my position. We need to move towards, state ownership, not individual ownership, state ownership, such that the profit will be used to benefit the people of our country.
Alaji, are we on the path of state capture? And most people raise concern about investor flight, right? All these issues can lead or probably lead to investors, sitting back and say, what is happening in Ghana's mining sector? Would that be safe for the investor community?
Well, first of all, I think I need to express my sincere gratitude to Kwame and to what's the name? Uzaif. For bringing some light to this matter. I mean, as a former minister for lands and natural resources, the debate has always been whether Ghana gets the best or the substantial value from the exploitation of its natural resources. And it appears that the answer has been no. There's general consensus that we don't get what is due us. We get crumbs. And that majority of the value that comes out of our natural resources are sent out. Whether you look at it in terms of the exploitation of our mineral resources or the exploitation of our oil resources, hydrocarbons, we simply do not get the value. That is why of our 68 years of existence, Ghana has been to the IMF 18 times within the last 40 years, looking for bailouts. A country that is heavily endowed like Ghana, we've been to the IMF for bailout of sorts 18 times. If you want to add what happened during the Rawlings as one, you say 17 times for bailouts. And any time that we are bailed out, now we are under bailouts. Any time that we are bailed out and we seem to get our economy going, and then we remove ourselves from the iron conditionalities. Like a spoiled child, we go back to the things that got us into the bailout in the first place. So it's clear that we need to change course. And there are good examples. Good examples all around the world, even in Africa. I mean, Botswana and their diamonds. The good examples. It started, they didn't have ownership of the diamonds. They only were entitled to royalties. Now they own their diamonds, a substantial part of their diamonds. And they're getting value. The value is returning. On the 20th day of October 2025, listen to what Her Excellency Jinana Opoko Ajiman, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, said when a new mine was being opened at Ahafo, the Ahafo North mine. He said, as we look to the future, let us be guided by a fundamental principle. The extraction of our mineral resources must always serve a higher national purpose. We must ensure that for every pit dug beneath the earth, a commensurate infrastructural legacy should rise in its place. He talked about rules in Obuasi, Takwa, and other places, which are deplorable. That's what the Vice President is saying. So the extraction of the natural resources must result in infrastructure, substantial infrastructural legacies. It says the wealth drawn from the deaf must be translated into schools, hospitals, and opportunities that lift our communities upwards. It must not be the case that you go to Obuasi. Obuasi has made it into the history books. Mining started there in the 18th or 19th century. But Obuasi has no legacy of mining. No high-rise buildings. Nothing. Like Johannesburg. No, you don't have it. So she's talking about uplifting our communities upwards. This is not merely a policy. It is a fundamental principle. It's not merely a policy. It's not what our wish. That's what we must work towards. These resources are national blessings to be managed for the benefit of all, not private windfalls for a few. I'm happy this principle is gaining traction, and it's manifesting itself in many forms. He spoke about diamond. In Ghana today, there is no automaticity in the renewal of leases. The fact that you got a lease and the lease recites that after 25 years it can be renewed, and you continue mining, and after the expiration of 25 years, or when the 25 years is about to expire, you put in an application for renewal. The country says that there is no automaticity. You must demonstrate compelling reasons why your lease must be renewed. And that's what people are interpreting to mean indigenization. No one is taking in this. Ghana is just simply saying that, and like Indum said so for so many years, what belongs to us must benefit us. If it is not going to benefit us, it is better to leave the resources on the ground for the generations that will come and ensure that it benefits them. That's our response to intergenerational equity. We must not conduct ourselves in such a way as to compromise the future of generations to come to continue to depend on the resources. What are we seeing in the mining sector? there's not only a destruction and exploitation of the resources, there is also a destruction of the livelihoods of people. And we're going to be left with almost nothing, no resources, and sick people. Government says, no, we must deal with that. Minerals Watch, Mining and Minerals Watch says, the accountability in the mining sector cannot be left to weak government enforcement mechanisms or regulatory mechanisms. We as citizens, we the people, the Constitution, the Universal Creed, we the people have a stake in ensuring that the proper things are done in the mining sector. That's just simply what, and ties in with your earlier activities, Forum for Accountability. Accountability within the mining sector is sine qua non for the enjoyment of the resources from the mining sector. If we leave mining companies to act with impunity, they leave us with hazards. And that's what they are doing. And that's why I'm commending him. And many of us should be doing that. Now, so it's not about nationalization. It's not because EP put in. Diamond Mines said that they were going to, when the mine price of gold plummeted, the mine was not performing as expected. So Ghana was getting virtually nothing. If the mine is not performing, you get nothing. So the diamond, Abosu Goldfields puts in a request to government that they want to redevelop the mine. Invest, and he spoke about $500 million. Invest in the mine to make it productive. Government looked at their proposal and said, well, go ahead. At that phase of the reinvestment, the demand was not going to be working. So government was not going to get any revenue or any resources from diamond mine. In their reinvestment bid, after the time limited for the redevelopment of the mine, government conducted an audit and realized that Baboso mine did not invest in that mine. Again, asymmetry of knowledge and information. Compliance.
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Now so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.